Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Narrycast, and this is a special episode. We haven't actually done one of these since the reaction video to the Harrison Butker commencement speech that set the world on fire. But when something happens in the world, I feel like things need to be addressed. I'm not saying that I am the professional person that should be addressed, but I am a person with a Catholic podcast, and I believe when stuff like this happens, I should at least give my thoughts on it. And so, by my words, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, and that is the recreation of the Last Supper. I know a lot of people say that wasn't the Last Supper; it was actually a Greek painting, which we'll actually pull up here in a little bit to see which one it actually looks like. But the recreation of the Last Supper at the Olympics opening ceremony. First, let's just say the opening ceremonies this year were super weird, very strange, and I'm not a big Olympic person. It's different. It happens every 4 years. I'm sure the opening ceremony is always super different. But at the end of the day, that seemed extremely weird. I saw a red carpet where they were like basically just like anybody showing up to any like award show or something like the Grammys. Yeah, the red carpet. And one of the first people I saw in there was John Legend and his wife. And so I was just like, what? They don't have nothing to do with the Olympics. Pretty funny people talking as well about how Snoop Dogg is basically America's like representative in the media. Like he's just everywhere. I mean, he carried the torch for God's sake. Just wild everything happening. I'm not sure why all these people are being mentioned and why all these people are part of it. They couldn't even find anyone to host the show, like be one of the sportscaster people, or I don't know what everyone call them, broadcasters, except like Kelly Clarkson and Peyton Manning, which never played in the Olympics because he's a football player, and then Kelly Clarkson was just a singer. So I don't know. The whole opening ceremony to me was super weird. But then obviously that's all opinions. But then it gets to the point where you have to speak out on this kind of stuff. Now, before I jump into this, I'm not a journalist. I didn't spend hours and hours looking into this. I read a lot of people's stuff on social media. I've seen the recording myself, and I really just wanted to get on here more so just to make my own personal opinion on it. But you guys that are listening to this, Catholic people that are listening to this, maybe don't know much about it. I encourage you guys to look into it for yourself and not to just listen to what everyone's saying and just form your own opinion and then whatever. And obviously, the last thing we want to do is just be extremely hateful and lose what Jesus taught us, which is to love thy neighbor. The people that were involved in this, the people that support it, the people that are all about this drag and transgenderism and all this kind of stuff, they need your love more than ever. So nothing should ever incite hate or anything. But let's get into it. So you guys that aren't aware, which I just doubt is anybody watching this, there was the Last Supper recreation by a whole bunch of drag people, and very strange, very weird. They had some blue Smurf sing something. I don't know. I don't even know who the group was. I don't know anything about it. But very, very strange. But obviously caused outrage in the Christian community, specifically the Catholic community. Kudos to all the athletes that were there that called it out. From all over all sorts of different countries, but the people who took to social media to call it out. I don't know if you need to go as far to say I'm going to now boycott the Olympics and not watch anything in the Olympics. I would not agree with that. I don't think that there's any reason to do that. I think it's a great time of year. This should be a great time where all countries do come together and do. Just have a however long it is. Have a time period of great competition and community and fellowship. But when stuff like this gets entered in, that's where you're just like, you're pushing buttons for all the wrong reason. And I get what you're saying, acceptance and tolerance and blah, blah, blah. Jesus would have tolerated. No. First of all, no, he wouldn't have. Love is not tolerance. But I understand where you guys are coming from, and I just completely disagree with it. So we want to first start with just what happened in general and kind of some of the soft apologies. So I'm going to share my screen and kind of click through some stuff that will allow you guys to see some stuff. Let's see. We're going to start here. So I found this article, and it is on a Catholic website, I believe. Yeah, cruxnow.com. So obviously, it's going to be written from a Catholic standpoint, but I want you guys to pay attention to some of the quotes that are in here. But I read through this thing, and they basically had talked, and clearly there was never any intention to show disrespect to any religious group. On the contrary, I think with Thomas Jolly, we really did try to celebrate community tolerance. Ugh. Everyone hates that word. We hate that word. It's like tolerance is what everyone thinks love is. That we should like just completely just tolerate everything and every way people act, and as a form of love, and it just isn't. But they wanted to celebrate it. Looking at the result of the polls that we shared, we believe that this ambition was achieved. First of all, if you shared it and your people were voting on this poll, then of course it looks like you achieved it. If people have taken any offense, we are, of course, really, really sorry. This does seem like someone that's obviously like, I disagree, but we are really sorry if we offended anyone. I genuinely think this person did not intend to offend anyone, did not intend that this would be such a big deal. I think that this person that they're interviewing, this I honestly, who was it? Spokesman Ian Descamps. I really truly think they didn't think that they were going to offend anyone, which is kind of crazy. My wish isn't to be subversive, nor to mock or to shock. And he failed at that. He said, saying, most of all, I wanted to send a message of love, a message of inclusion. Again, that word, inclusion, tolerance, and not all to divide. So the apology was made in response to a wave of backlash from Catholics, which was a bad wave of backlash from Catholics, but I had tons of Protestant friends and stuff that were posting about it as well. So it's not just Catholics, but members of other, just kidding, members of other Christian communities, atheists, and members of other faith groups to the July 26th opening ceremony. There's backlash from atheists. That's strange. So, but yeah, so it featured a group of scantily clad men in drag dancing provocatively while parodying in the Last Supper. So as you scroll down, though, obviously there's bishops and people over there in France that that called it out. Kudos to you guys. If this would have been in some other countries, this would not. This has been swept under the rug. They would have stayed silent. I'm glad that they actually went about and actually said something, which was great. So some commentators in the wake of this controversy have claimed that the performance was evocative of the feast of Dionysus, how you say it, rather than the Last Supper, as a nod to the Greek roots of the Olympic Games. Now, okay, this is where everyone is just trying to either cover their tracks, or they're trying to say, like, you shouldn't be offended. We weren't even thinking of that. This is where it's just someone's opinions, someone's just own thoughts are coming in, because what I was heard, and I believe it says it down here later, but that it was actually the Feast of the Gods is what the Greek painting, and I have it, I'll pull it up in a second, but let me remind myself who this was by. Giovanni Bellini was the person who did this, but yeah, I received a lot of messages of support and people who were very happy that I was there, and very surprised that we were in that. There were drag queens at the opening ceremony. Where all this starts to fall apart, art always divides. That's like just like wild. And granted, yeah, it's going to divide as far as people like how they interpret it or what they like about it, everything like that. I was not always into art, never into art, and so I don't understand that. So please comment below what that means. If it's meant to divide, like, shouldn't we not like it? Because that is what you guys want, inclusion and tolerance and everything. So why would you want to? Art always divides. So not tolerance, not inclusion. And so it's art for me. He said, saying the depiction of the Last Supper is not a provocation. It's a biblical representation that has been used in pop culture for decades, and it's never really been a problem. So you got people that were in the performance starting to say different things. And I think I want to make sure I didn't skip over anything, because there's a part in here where there were no real provocations or anything that was truly obscene. Yeah, right. We didn't make fun of the painting at all. It's really just because it's queers and drag queens who use that representation that it bothers. Yes, absolutely. I think that maybe it would have been a little weird if it would have just had like LeBron James as Jesus and a bunch of the athletes around him. Yeah, it still would have been like weird. But yeah, no, that's exactly why it bothered a lot of people. People that we believe are living in sin, recreating and mocking the Last Supper. like thinking that Jesus would have been just completely okay with this and all this stuff. But they're saying that wasn't the Last Supper. It wasn't the Last Supper until we get down here. So where is it at? There's a place in here where they talk to a person. Yeah, like saying stuff like this. Oh, yes, yes, the New Gay Testament. Stuff like this is just like people agreeing like with what we were doing. And in fact, it's kind of a masterpiece of woke duplicity. If they felt this is meant to mollify Christians, I would think again. And they're just, I mean, at this point, not even hiding it. They weren't like trying to like mock or not trying to make fun of whatever was being said. But yeah, Christians were offended because it was offensive and it was intended to be offensive. So please don't patronize us with this condescending remark of, well, if you had any bad feelings, we're awfully sorry about that. Like they need to get their story straight, because it was either meant to be offensive and it was the Last Supper, or it wasn't. So these are all quotes that have been like were done by the people that were in it. And I'm trying to find the part where someone actually says like it was supposed to be the Last Supper. We have a group of drag queens coveting in a sexually provocative way, clearly an imitation of Da Vinci's Last Supper, which represents the world, the Last Supper of Jesus, and no disrespect was meant. Do you think anyone takes that seriously? Yeah, just again, people in here, I don't know why I can't find the thing I was looking for, because it starts with them saying that this isn't, it was, I'm so sorry, it was not supposed to be the Last Supper. And then it just gets into it of like, no, it was. Like one of the actors has said, like, it was supposed to be the Last Supper. And so you just think that at this point, they're just trying to hide in the shadows. But for you guys that want to say so, that it wasn't supposed to be the Last Supper, it was supposed to be this Feast of the Gods. Let's jump to that now. So the Feast of the Gods, here's the picture. Giovanni Bellini and Titian, however you say it. The Feast of the Gods. It's okay. I mean, there's no table. It does look like they're all hanging out. There's a butt. There's a couple of inappropriate paintings and stuff like that. But this is what we actually saw in the. Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, let me go back here. I think I saved it. There it is. This is what we actually saw to this, saying that it is not a depiction of the Last Supper. It's supposed to be this. But now you can see why we wouldn't believe you here. Now, let's just take all of it aside. Say the Last Supper thing's not that offensive, not that weird. You know what is weird is drag. Some of these you can't quite tell. Drag. A child. Even some of these, like maybe it looks drag, but maybe it's a woman, and maybe some women and stuff are in here just dressed super provocatively and just weird. Like it's like the Hunger Games is what we're watching here, and you have a child, an innocent child here that you guys are bringing in as part of this. Go ahead and exit out of this stuff. But that's where it all came in for me, is that there's on their side, there's too much back and forth. There's too much. They're not confirming what it is or what it wasn't. They're people saying that it shouldn't have been offensive that it was the Last Supper. And then there's some people saying it wasn't the Last Supper. It's this painting that looks nothing like this painting. And so that when that happens, that kind of stuff happens, meaning there was no clear communication of all this stuff, that's when you leave stuff up to someone's own interpretation. And when you have actors saying that, no, we were trying to imitate the Last Supper as drag, as people just absolutely living in sin and just such a life that we don't want our children, especially that children that was right next to them involved in it, we don't want them living in. And this is something too, that if you're going to boycott something, boycott the closing ceremonies. Don't bother. Don't watch it. You never know what it's going to be. The Olympics are supposed to be something where you should be able to sit with your kids and enjoy watching the sports, and you can introduce them to so many different sports in this. So my recommendation in the future is just to avoid all opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies. You want to be able to control what your kids are going to be exposed to. They say you can't shelter your kids. That's a bunch of BS. You absolutely can and you should shelter your kids from this kind of stuff. They shouldn't be ignorant to it. They shouldn't grow up and leave high school and then get into the real world and all of a sudden see a gay person and just be like, what in the world? What was that? Like, I've never heard of that. But you definitely, especially at a young age, like I would not have want my daughter to see that show. I wouldn't have want my son to see that show. He's 2. I wouldn't have want him to see it. But my 4-year-old would have understood what it was and asking who the blue guy was and who the person with the erect genitals in front of the kid was. And so it's stuff you just don't want your kids to see. You don't want them growing up. Save their innocence, shelter them from that innocence. And like I said, this video isn't to tell you guys this is right and this is wrong. Just in the really quick research I did and what I've been listening to from both sides. I've seen people post saying that you shouldn't be so offended and all this stuff. As a Christian, as a Catholic, you should be very offended. And if this was some drag person up on a cross, like Mark Driscoll, you were offended when that guy was basically stripping on a cross. Yeah, that was absolutely right. You should have been offended. This should have also been offensive for you. And so that being said, don't let it incite hate in you. Don't let it incite anything bad towards other people. Just continue to love, continue to pray for these people, pray for this world, because it's definitely heading in a very derogatory, sexual, perverse way, and we need to protect our kids from it. So homeschool your kids. Don't give your kids social media until they're in high school or further. No smartphones, no tablets, no TV shows, or vet the TV shows before you watch them. Sounds crazy, but it's a beautiful life. Like, protect them. They could have so much better than you had growing up. They don't need to be addicted to their phones. They don't need to be addicted to video games. They don't need to be addicted to social media and getting likes and followers and being the next big thing. I wouldn't want my kid to watch this and be like, I want a podcast. I want a big podcast. And I too, like, I do this for the passion of it, and obviously make absolutely nothing from this. So it's just something I do that I think is part of my talent and treasure, or talent and time that I can share to grow in the kingdom of God. But I pray, God, don't ever let this become something I do for the money and do for the fame. Like, I don't want any part of that. I don't want to be any part of these groups ever. I want to be a humble servant for you, and I want to keep my faith, my family, and then my work as the center. You guys have a blessed week. This will be a Tuesday, and so we will have this Thursday an awesome interview with Brett Akins, the development director from the Oklahoma State University in Stillwater at St. John's. And so, yeah, we do the same job. And so we're going to talk about how you can serve your community and give with your time, talent, and treasure. It is a beautiful episode. And don't forget, we always have Mondays, Lectio Divina. This is just a special episode. These kind of episodes don't happen all the time, but maybe one day they will. You guys can sign up on our Patreon, and we're going to start producing content there, seeing challenges and different kinds of stuff, be in our newsletter, everything. But support the channel so stuff like this can grow. Stuff like this can start to make its way around YouTube. But by supporting a small monthly gift, they add up. I promise you, we are going to be able to continue to make this thing even bigger and better, bring on more people, have more content, because we want to have the most and the best Catholic content on the internet. So thank you for all the subscribers we have now. We're on the road to 500. Let's keep it going. And we will see you guys this Thursday. God bless.